We are live.
Eric, is Andrew joining us tonight or just you? You're on mute.
All these months and I still do that.
Me too.
When I talked to him earlier today, he said he was going to. So
okay. I'll leave his name on the screen, and if he's not, he's not. But I'm going to have all of us just introduce ourselves when we officially start in 1 minute.
Sounds good.
Autumn, where did you say you were going to put those questions in the chat, or where did you say you were going to put that form?
We'll put it in the chat on YouTube so that people can access a link to the form.
Okay. Right. Just when it turns to 6 o'clock, I want to make sure I'm telling them.
Yep, I will ask Kat to do that real quick for us.
Okay, I have 6 o'clock. I'd like to welcome everyone to our bond information meeting about the new elementary school. My name is Julie Treppa. I am the superintendent of Boone Schools, and we're going to do our introductions first before we begin our presentation. So Mitch, I'll let you go next.
Thanks, Julie. My name is Mitchell Lewis. I'm the Director of Business Services and Board Secretary for Boone Schools. I've been at Boone for almost 3 years already and looking forward to this project.
Autumn.
I'm Autumn Zieler. I'm the principal at Paige and Lincoln, and I get to work with all our amazing little pumpkins in the Boone Community School District, and I'm excited about this opportunity for our students.
And we have some gentlemen from DLR, the architect firm that we have hired to help with this project. So Eric, I'm going to let you start with your introduction.
Sounds good. Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Eric Barron. I'm an educational architect with DLR Group. We specialize in educational facilities all across the state of Iowa and the country. So I've been working with the Boone School District for quite a while now. I'm glad to continue our relationship. Thank you.
Yep, and my name is Andrew Van Leeuwen. I'm also an architect with DLR Group, specializing in K-12 educational facilities.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now so that we can share the presentation with you. And we're going to try and go back to the beginning of that presentation first. And so this evening, what we hope to do is be able to provide everyone with some information about the upcoming bond referendum. You will very soon here see in the chat an opportunity to put your questions to our team here so that if after our presentation you still have questions that remain and you'd like them answered, it gives us an opportunity to collect those all together and be able to answer them at the end of the presentation. So as we progress through, feel free to jump into that document and send us your questions. And hopefully by the end of the night, you will have had a history of our facilities planning in Boone Community School District. We hope to share with you our current needs that we have within Paige and Lincoln, and plans for our new building, as well as time to answer your questions. So that's our agenda for this evening. I think the best place to start is, when did the district decide we needed a new school? And that goes back all the way to 2006, when the Boone School District, prior to the construction of the middle school in 2006, determined a long-range facilities plan. And at that time, that is when the restructuring of the elementary buildings and the elimination of the use of the buildings with Garfield, Lowell, and Bryant occurred. That's also when Franklin Elementary became a 2 through 4 grade level school building through the remodeling and additional work that was done. And that's also when Lincoln and Paige School became pre-K1 buildings. In 2006, our middle school was built, and then the addition occurred in 2009. The last bond referendum occurred for the high school project. The bond referendum occurred in 2011, but the project was completed in 2015, which then brings us to where we currently are, and that is the planning for a new elementary project to replace Paige and Lincoln elementary schools. The district has purchased a site location for the new elementary building, and you can see on the map that the new site would be just off of Hancock, and I believe it's Jackson Road. You see where Highway 30 aligns, and then Corporal Snedden Drive on the opposite side of the property. But the new building site would be on the north end of that property that was purchased by the district. What we're hoping to be able to accomplish with this new early childhood center is to have an improved learning environment for students. And later in the presentation, you'll get a taste of what our students currently experience. We are going to focus on pictures and video from Lincoln Elementary because our original intent was for all of us to be sitting in the facility so that you could see it for yourselves. But we're hoping to do that for you virtually. We also are hoping through a new building to provide a safer environment for our students. As you are aware that secure entrances and exits have been something that schools across the state and nation have made sure to bring attention to. And that was accomplished through the high school remodeling project, as well as through the Franklin remodeling project and when we built the middle school. But Paige and Lincoln do not currently have those secure entrances and exits, as well as ADA compliant facilities. So anyone who has mobility issues or a physical difficulties, there are portions of our buildings at Paige and Lincoln that are inaccessible to them currently. We also, anyone who is familiar with both sites are aware that we have a need for safer pickup and drop-off opportunities. Currently, there are no parking lots at either facility. Parking has to occur along the streets. And so when we're doing pickup and drop-off, we're battling parking and dropping off and picking up all in the same location. So that can make for a very difficult time at both locations. We also are looking to be able to have greater maintenance and professional development efficiencies. When you have two buildings that are aging, a multitude of events can occur. And when there are two buildings, there's double the issues that can arise. So having one building would help provide that efficiency, as well as professional development efficiencies. Currently, our pre-K1 staff at both buildings, usually there is one building that's having to travel to the other so that they can have professional development opportunities together. We certainly want to align our educational opportunities for our students, regardless of where they might be receiving their education. So we do like to have our staff have those opportunities together. And so professional development, and we do partner with some of our private entities as well. So that would also allow us to be more efficient in having more time for professional development and the space in which to do so. We are looking to be able to have opportunities for flexibility with our programming, as well as our expanding populations. Some of you may have seen recently that there's potential housing that is being developed in the city of Boone. And so if we have more students, we want to be able to welcome them into our district and allow them to have educational opportunities, and currently the space that we have simply doesn't allow for that kind of expansion. And then the programming, the types of educational opportunities that existed 50 years ago, currently we have other educational programming needs that we could accommodate that can't be accommodated in our current facilities. We are hoping to have a gymnasium and space for the community use as well. That currently we do have a gym in both Paige and Lincoln, but those of you familiar with the buildings know that the gymnasiums are the size of very, very small cafeterias and don't allow for opportunities for some of our sports teams to utilize those facilities. They're just simply too small and it'd be too dangerous. So the use of those facilities for community and also for our school is fairly limited, but having additional gyms and commons area spaces would allow for the community to use the space. And since we're in basketball season, I think most people realize that we couldn't have too many basketball courts in our district. So that's something that we are hoping to accomplish by having a new early childhood center. The other piece that isn't listed in this particular slide that I wanted to mention is that we do provide BEEP services or daycare services in one of our locations currently. By having a new facility, it would allow us to expand that opportunity. And daycare is an entity that is greatly needed in our community. And so we're hoping that we can expand upon that as well. In looking at trying to meet some of those needs, I think a common question is why not just remodel Paige and Lincoln? And I think the easiest way to explain why is to say that we like to learn from the experiences that we've already had. So in remodeling the high school, we've learned that remodeling can be just as expensive or even more expensive than building a brand new facility. And when you're trying to bring remodeling in with existing buildings, you don't have the same efficiency with your utilities. You still have some ongoing repairs that occur because the facilities are not completely brand new. And when you're remodeling, you need a place to have the students still learning, because the remodeling is not a possibility over the course of a summer or during a break time. So it would take at least 3 years for us to be able to remodel both of those buildings. And we would need a location for our students to be while the remodeling would be occurring as well. So then what we wanted to do as a district is look at what would it cost if we didn't do anything. And we simply just maintained Paige and Lincoln even for the next 5 years. I'm going to turn it over to Autumn at this point, because what I'd like her to speak about is the amount of maintenance and possible replacement of systems that we're looking at in the near future, not down the road very far at all, but things that could easily need to be replaced in the next 5 years that would require the kind of upkeep and maintenance that we have listed on your screen.
Thanks, Julie. There's a lot of needs currently in both of the buildings. One of our biggest money suckers, let's call it, is definitely our boiler system. We have a boiler at both buildings. We have people that take care of it, water each other, do those kind of things. But the Paige one in particular blew something, a break, it had to be replaced, and they realized that the belief that's 30 years old, and that's about the spot we need to replace it. So we think of those things, an entire boiler system. That's what adds up that money. In addition to the boiler system, the way that our boiler systems work, they push that heat up to our classrooms through radiant heat, and then they have fans that are also attached to that. Just this week, those fans broke that blow the heat out to the classrooms, and we're really struggling to find the parts for such an old system to be able to replace it. So all those things. In addition to that, it's also the problem of having electricity that needs to go into that and be fixed and work through that as well. And if we're getting into the walls, we really have to think about what we can do there. Our buildings have asbestos in them, and so would need asbestos abatements done. And because of that, that would be another cost that would be added, and we that both of our buildings as well. We also need windows replaced, and when you think about it, there's quite a few really big windows in each classroom, and because of that, that would be a really large cost as we think about all of our classrooms, all of our window replacements, and just monitoring that heating and cooling from there. We also have a really old pipe system, and in that piping system, can't find the nozzles for sink anymore. We have sinking systems that are not working as they should. And so finding all those replacement parts, redoing plumbing. One of our buildings has roots that are growing through the pipes where we need to tear up the street and get into it, for the kind of things as well. So there's lots of those big ticket items that are multifaceted. Once you open something up, then it's electricity, and then it's asbestos abatement, then it's all these other pieces that go into play, especially working with really old systems where you can't just replace a piece anymore. You're going to have to replace the entire system. So those things are really large ticket items, and then they still wouldn't address the needs of students listed there.
Thank you, Autumn. I think the other piece that we wanted to cover with regard to if we simply continue forward with maintenance and we didn't pursue a bond referendum and we simply wanted to just maintain the buildings as they are, is just to remind all of you what it is that we would not be able to attain even if we were able to maintain the facilities in a manner that would allow us to continue to use the facilities. We still would not be ADA compliant. We still would not have safe entryways or up-to-date ventilation systems. The parking would still not be resolved. All of those are needs that would still remain if we were to continue to maintain the buildings as we are currently. So then when the district decided, okay, that doesn't seem like a viable option for us, we look at what if we try to remodel Paige and Lincoln. When we look at the remodeling costs, we're looking at $24.5 million to be able to make sure that both buildings would have new gyms, that both buildings would have the secure entrances, that they would have the additional classrooms, that they would have the pieces that they would both be ADA compliant. When we try to accommodate all of those needs, then the building itself would cost for both buildings, the cost would be $24.5 million. And that does not include any additional costs that would occur, such as architectural fees or contracting fees that aren't included in the actual just facility itself. And then when we look at having a new building, and we're able to meet all of those needs, we would be able to have a parking lot and secure entrances, an easier way to have drop off and pick up, to have fully ADA compliant buildings, to have enough classrooms for the students and expanded programming, to have HVAC systems that are not only working well, but are working efficiently. The building itself is about $19.9 million. And that would encompass about 80,000 square feet. And when you add in the cost of the parking lot, the contracting or architectural fees, then you're looking at the $23 million bond referendum that that will be on the ballot. So we wanted to be able to share with everyone that all of those options have been considered as a district, and over the course of the time that the district was looking to implement their long-term facilities plan. And that's how the district arrived at needing a brand new building versus simply remodeling. The other point that we would like to emphasize is that this bond will not raise your taxes on the debt service levy. And what I have heard oftentimes is, how is it possible that you can build a $23 million facility and not raise my taxes? Well, the reason that we're able to do that is that Boone has been very efficient and extremely responsible with your tax dollars in the past. So when there's been other GO bonds or there have been sales tax bonds that have been taken out, the district has paid those down early. They have taken opportunities to save on interest rates and to be able to pay the principal down. And what essentially happens is it helps the district have a good good credit history is essentially the best way to put it. And so school districts that have a good credit history, also then you look at how much debt can you take on as a district. And part of that is how much debt you already have that you've incurred. And because they've paid off some of the debts previously, we have enough to borrow the 23 million. We actually have, I believe, Mitch, you can correct me if I'm wrong, are we up to $27 million possibilities, but we're the bond is for 23 million?
At the end of this, after June or July 1st, it is at 27 million. So we're right there.
So essentially what this bond referendum is asking, and what we're asking our community members to vote on, is the ability to borrow this money. We want to be able to borrow the money to be able to pay for the school. And when we pay off that debt, then we use the debt service levy. And that's the part that sits currently at 4.05 per $1,000 of assessed value. So that is the highest amount that can be levied for a debt service. So it cannot be raised even if we wanted to raise it. And so that's how we are confident in being able to share with you that we are not going to need to raise the debt service levy because it's already been maxed out. The other piece that I would want everyone to be aware of is that 4.05 will not increase. But if your assessed value of your property were to increase, it's possible that you would be paying more simply because the assessed value was raised, not because the taxes were raised. So I think that's an important distinction that sometimes can be lost in some of the paperwork that comes to you as a taxpayer, to realize that the actual levy is not going to increase. So I think that's an advantage that Boone Schools has because of the responsible actions that they've taken in the past. That is not always a benefit that all districts have. Another common question is what happens to Paige and Lincoln if this were to, this bond referendum passed. Ultimately, that decision is up to our Board of Education. However, we have had interested parties in at least one of the properties. So we would anticipate that we would have interested parties in purchasing possibly both properties. But if one or both of the properties would not be able to be sold, that's when the district would need to determine the best use of that property. I think that, again, looking at the history of Boone and how the district has handled previous properties when they were no longer used as schools demonstrates their responsibility in ensuring that the property is either used efficiently or sold or is turned into opportunities for more housing in the city too. So that's just something that we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, but that is the current thought process behind what would happen to Paige and Lincoln. Now, since we are not physically in Lincoln School, we'd like to take you into Lincoln School. So I'm going to go ahead and let Autumn walk you through the front door at Lincoln.
All right, so this is kind of the entryway as you get into Lincoln. I'm gonna just see if I can double click that. You know what, Julie, I think I need you to click on it. It won't let me click on it because you're sharing your screen, I think. And if you want to hit that big square in the corner, it'll make it bigger. So this is the entryway into Lincoln. One of our concerns is just the welcomingness of our building. It's 81 years old, so remember that it's been around for a while. We only have one secure entrance, and that would be this door right here, or one key card entrance that allows people in and out. You enter into a stairwell. that also has the belt cooler in the hallway. And one of our safety concerns is that as you enter, you have access to the entire building. So there's no way to manage that flow or secure only safe people enter, because that door that you enter in right there also has access to the entire second floor. Because to get to the office, you have to walk even further into the building to get there. So that safe entry is a real concern at Lincoln as well. Also knowing that oftentimes people call us and can't find the entryway at Lincoln. Our new families feel that way. UPS feels that way because the front entryway on Mamie, there's no parking lot. There's no welcoming feature for families. Our staff parks on the street and walks, as well as our families and people visiting our school.
Autumn, I'm going to stop sharing so that do you have it ready for you to go so that then you have control over it?
Yep, I do. 1 second. All right, my internet's not cooperating as well as I'd like, but we will make it work. All right. In addition to those safe entry and exits, there are just that question of classrooms that are the right size and appropriate for our students. During this time of COVID, we've really used every single square inch to spread out and socially distance. So here is a sample of a kindergarten classroom. You can tell right here that they aren't in their classroom right now. So you can kind of see their chairs are up on their tables. And actually this classroom has some newer tables in it. But those dots on the floor are where kids sit to spread out throughout their carpet time. You'll notice to fit, right now this class has 18 in it, so a rather small amount, but they are pushed to every wall in every corner possible. I don't know if you can notice too, that's an old school chalkboard. We still have really old fixtures that had been there for a while ago. And this teacher has done a great job of making the space feel welcoming and loving, but it also definitely is very short on space. And you'll notice on the wall there was, see if I can rewind it a little bit. There was the damage from the rain that comes in as well. And those are the air conditioning units that are in each building. I don't know if you could see the light underneath that. We try our best to retrofit that air conditioning, more water damage. The plaster is peeling as well in our building. So new windows that I spoke about, air conditioning and heating are definitely a concern in buildings as well. And just the amount of space in the classrooms that are built. This is kindergarten, and back in the day, kindergarten was half day, less kids in the classroom. We have more kids in the classroom. It's all day. And then especially during a time like COVID, when every square inch counts, we wanted you to see what a typical classroom looks like. Some of the struggles that we run into are just damages from the building structure. Whoever built these did an awesome job. They're 81 years old. They're lasting forever. But what you'll notice is that we really struggle with water and leakage in both of our buildings. But Lincoln in particular has a lot of water damage. Again, it's 81 years old. We try to fix it, but it's in a lot of locations in our building. Sometimes it leaks in and destroys the whole bulletin board or whatever's on that shelf as well. And you'll just notice there's lots of places in the building that have a lot of that water damage as well. Also in this video that's up right now, you can see that those radiators, those old school radiators that get warm to the touch, they're used in a variety of classrooms, and we really have to monitor how much heat output we can do to ensure that classrooms stay warm and safe and those don't get too hot. So just a couple examples of things that you would see in the classroom and in the school itself. There's a couple more pictures that I have for you of our buildings. There's a classroom with kids in it. You can see right now they're kind of pushed to the corners, especially a space for students to work. Our littlest kiddos often need one-on-one time with the teacher. They need space to work and not have to be distracted by others, and that is a real struggle. This is a different classroom in a lot of our classrooms. Lincoln in particular, again, is 81 years old. And just thinking about the structure of the building in that amount of time, there's a lot of repair that's needed. This is an entryway to our gym on one of the ends, and we had to remove some wasps from it. And you can just see over time how the building is falling apart. Again, 81 years, it lasted a long time, but it's definitely time for a new space. We also have had to use our building really creatively. You'll notice here that there's one of our amazing associates working with a student one-on-one, probably checking their letters or sounds. We have to use every square foot to get creative in our space. You'll notice behind her, there's a lot of storage and things like that out in the hallway so that we can use every inch of the classroom. We have whole libraries of book sets on top of lockers and crammed on a stage, as well as offices for our online teacher on a stage as well, kind of made with dividers. We use every corner of space, but it's just not the welcoming, warm environment or even the great space to work one-on-one with a student that we want and we dream about in a new building. Julie talked about being ADA compliant. This is actually at Lincoln in between the old and the new. You can see this ramp here that helps them get from the old and the new section. It is not ADA compliant. It's a very sharp ramp. We need to work to make it be ADA compliant. But there's little things like this that make parts of our building not accessible to all of our students and all of our families when they come in for conferences or to visit. And that's one of our big hopes for our new building, is that every child and every student, no matter their mobility needs or physical needs, can be anywhere in our building and feel welcome and wanted. Again, another picture of our just building is slowly falling apart. This is just behind a kiddo's desk. He bumped it with his foot and it just kind of all came down. So thinking about our spaces and how we can ensure safety, it's hard to see. I wish you could be there today so you could see it. Our teachers are doing awesome things in spaces that don't represent their awesomeness, for sure. Another example of space heaters, this is actually the new space heaters in our new wing that was built the same year that Paige was built. So it's about, I think, 61 years old, 60-ish years old. And these get hot as well. So we also have to really watch and use some space heaters that are ultraviolet so they don't get warm to the touch to counter that. But again, we manage those electrical issues that I talked about earlier and what kind of things would need to be done just to maintain our space and be able to plug in things to take care of our current environment. I'm going to go to our questions document. I'm going to stop sharing.
One of the things that we also wanted to share is just the timeline that if the bond referendum were to pass, the timeline for opening a new elementary school would be fall of 2023. And that is so that it's designed so that our community can have input into the design of the building. You'll notice that everything that we've shared with you does not have a specific design to the building, because that's something that we want to work in collaboration with our community members, our parents, our teachers, just all of our stakeholders, to make sure that if we're building a new facility, we're building it with the future in mind and flexibility in which, so that we can adapt as things change over time. The other piece that we are planning for is to build a new building that would house not only our current situation, but build the larger spaces, such as the cafeteria, the library, some of the larger spaces, so that as if we were going to have up to 600 students. And the reason for that is, if those of you that have been in the community and were here when Boone Middle School was built, you know that we had to do an addition. And when we originally built the middle school, the cafeteria was not designed for that addition. And so we want to make sure that when we're building a facility, that we're building it with the future in mind, because none of us would have imagined that we'd be in a pandemic, for example. You never know what's going to be thrown at you. So we want to make sure that we're being forward thinking when we build a new building. And so that is something that is part of the plan and is part of what the bond referendum would include.
Julie, you have a question from our people that are watching. And remember, if you are watching, there's that link on the bottom of the YouTube. If you go to the comments, there's a link and you can fill out your question really quick. And that way we can be able to respond and answer it. So the question, Julie, is why does Boone not consider a K-5 building like most other places?
So that's something that happened when you started back with the facilities planning in 2006, when you did some of your reconfigurations. A lot of times the K-5 buildings are neighborhood schools, and that is something that Boone actually moved away from. And so since I am new to the community, that's probably not the best answer that that we can give, but I will definitely make sure that I will seek out the answer from our board that was, or board members that maybe were present during that time. And, but it's not unusual for districts to have the configurations that we have. So I don't want to give the impression that everyone except Boone or everyone in a few schools have this configuration. It really is dependent upon each community and what each community needs. So I feel that the configurations that we have help meet the needs of what our community needs. It's truly dependent on the community in which you live. So that's something that I can follow up in our Q&A that we do have out publicly. We can add that question and expand upon it with individuals that have that information.
And then you have another question. Is there any plan for natural areas, prairie on the new land, location, just to beautify the environment?
So is there a formal plan? No, but that would be one of the reasons that the land acquisition is where it is. It allows for that opportunity to have those outdoor spaces. That is something that on our current Paige and Lincoln properties, there's not a lot of space for our students. A lot of their playground time is on cement, not on grass or green areas. And so the location of the school building and the land that we've acquired as a district will allow for those types of opportunities. And that would be something that we would include in that design phase. So whoever asked that question needs to hold on to it and then make their suggestion when we're, in that design phase, if we're fortunate enough to be there.
Right now, there are no more questions on our.
Well, I'm going to answer one that I think is out there that someone hasn't asked. So one question that I have heard quite frequently is, why not just build a high school? And so I'd like to address that, because not only was that something that was addressed through the 2006 long range facilities planning, but let's assume that the district changed their mind after they had that planning session and decided they wanted a brand new building, high school. The school district can only borrow a certain percentage. And so we would first have to have all of our bonds paid off. And currently the bonds that we have, the debts that we have, will not be paid off until 2032. And when that is paid off, we would have a bonding capacity right now of just over, I believe, $50 million. And if you would look at the nearby high school being built in Ames, that's a $110 million project. And so the ability to bond for a new high school just is not in our, it's not in our wheelhouse. It's not something that we're able to do. So I believe that that's something that the district looked at prior to arriving in 2021. And that's why they decided to remodel the current high school as it is. So that's a question that I've had. So I wanted to make sure I address that. Any other questions? Wow. Okay. I think maybe the people joining us have also been very interested in the documents that have been put out. So maybe your questions have been answered through those other documents that we've shared.
I think also too, if you're watching and you have more questions, there's a bond button on our new website face. So there's lots of the question and answer documents. I know some people have had some questions. If you're not even sure what questions to ask, there's some great questions on there that have been answered in response to questions we've heard in the community or that have people have reached out and asked us. So make sure that if you go to our website, you can click on that bond button and get that information. And if you think of more questions too, there's an email address that you can send your questions to, and one of us will be able to respond to those questions for you.
We will also be sending home fact sheets about the bond next Thursday to all of our elementary students, because our elementary students do have folders specifically to bring things home. So we have those, and on those fact sheets is a QR code that you can also then get to that website for the bond referendum button as well, that will give more information than what comes on the fact sheet, but there will be a fact sheet coming out as well. Also, absentee voting opportunities. So one of the questions is, well, when is the vote? The vote will take place on March 2nd, but just like other elections, you can vote absentee and even vote early through the absentee process as well. And so that information also will be going out, just so that people are well informed as to how you can plan to vote. We're all very well aware of that, the need to plan to vote. We've been through this fairly recently. So want to make sure we give you that same information. It can be found on the county site as well.
Julie, there was a question about daycare. Are you okay if I talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Awesome. So Julie mentioned the need for daycare in our community. That's a real need, especially for our 3- and 4-year-olds in our community as they're preparing to be learners and love learning. We need that in our community. So one of the benefits that really we could only have in the new build option would be that we could offer services like 3-year-old preschool, more 4-year-old preschool, and then that wraparound care that's needed. So many of our community members work, and so it's really hard for them to transport kids for 3 hours of childcare. Resources like HERDA, the white bus that used to bus some of our kids, don't do that anymore. And so we have more and more of a need for wraparound care. And like Julie mentioned, we have a great program called BEEP that does provide that. They have a great summer program as well, but we're really limited to the capacity of one classroom of being able to serve those students. And so this site would definitely be prepared to offer some of those childcare options for families and preschool options for our littlest pumpkins. And that could also be after school care, like kids club or other things that we want our students to be able to have. And right now, space really limits all of those choices, which then limit the choices of our community and our students. So that is something that we are actively planning for. We want that right here in our community. We want to start our kids off young and strong with that love of learning and that inquiry that they should have all the time. So that's definitely part of our planning. And it does require a special environment, little potties, little sinks, those kind of things that we need to intentionally plan for. And that's definitely on our heart and minds too, as we think about the possibilities of a new build. And I don't think there's any more questions on the question sheet.
Okay, well, what I will encourage all of you that are watching tonight to do is to encourage others to attend the other informational meeting that we have scheduled for February 16th at Paige. We would highly encourage people to join us. Hopefully we'll be able to be in person and virtual at the same time at that time. If we have another weather event and we need to be virtual only, we will do that as well. But we would encourage you to share with others anything that you may have learned through this informational time with us, as well as encourage others to join other opportunities to learn more about the bond referendum. We just want to make sure that our community is aware of what is being presented and be able to answer the questions that may be out there.
And one more thing, Julie, too, as you think about that March 2nd polling date, our one polling site is at the fairgrounds. So if you're not going to choose to do absentee voting or early voting at the courthouse, then that site is at the fairgrounds for that March 2nd voting date.
Thank you for the reminder, because that is not always the case. So thank you. We're going to do some teacher wait time before we sign off. And so we're going to wait just a couple of minutes. Make sure that none of you have some last minute questions that you're frantically trying to put into the document. Otherwise, we will thank you all for your time and investment in learning more about the needs of our district. So. No more, Autumn? No more? Okay. Well, thank you everyone for joining us, and we hope to see you on the 16th, or at least maybe some of your friends and family that weren't able to join tonight. Thank you so much.